Hello Varlets, looks like part 2 of the Traitor's Curse update dropped right before my holiday. I can't tell you how excited I am for this, so I'm gonna make the most of this video and cover as much as I can. Part 2 of the Traitor's Curse brings with it a bunch of new weapons, which I'll be showcasing throughout the video. It also comes with a bunch of consumable stims, which gives us a varying buff depending on the stim we take. But in addition to that, we're also getting a bunch of weapon and blessing balances, enemy balances, as well as bug fixes. Let's dive in. Starting with the new map, in this patch we have access to Warren 619 Hab Zone, where we dive into the back alleys of the carnival to destroy the stim production facilities. Can't wait to check it out. We have also received a new piece of Redacted Comms, and it turns out we'll only encounter one of the twins, either Rinda or Rodin. Well, so much for the dual encounter I was hoping for. Moving on, we're also getting a bunch of new weapon marks with this update as mentioned. We have a total of 4 shovels, meaning both the Ogryn and the Veteran will have the complete set with this update. The foldable shovels allow you to turn the shovel into a makeshift pickaxe for one powerful strike down. It then resets the weapon into its unfolded state after a successful hit. This applies to all the new shovels. The difference is, the Veteran shovel uses the pointy end that is exposed to make a precise strike that gets stuck in enemies' hit, and it deals extra damage when the weapon is pulled out of the enemies. The Ogryn shovels are more simple, going for much more powerful hammer blows that crushes enemies like the bugs they are. We're also getting a bunch of new chain weapons with this update. We're getting a new Chainaxe, a new Eviscerator, and a chain sword. With this update, chain weapons have been given the ability to disengage from their sawing attack. By dodging, you can stop the saw early at the cost of some stamina and of course losing out on the rip damage at the end. The current Chainaxe we have now is also receiving some buffs in the form of increased heavy attack cleave, increased armor damage modifiers, and a more vertical light and heavy special attack to better strike your intended targets. Here are the new chain weapons in action. We're also getting a new revolver, the Agrippina Mark 14 revolver. This mark comes with it the ability to fan fire the weapon, unloading its bullets in quick succession while having a speed loader to reload quickly. This mark has a shorter range, is less accurate, and deals lower damage in exchange for its close range burst damage. We're also getting a heavy Laspistol, the Acatran MG Mark II. This mark has higher damage per shot and has slightly longer range in exchange for a slower rate of fire. Finally, we've got a new combat blade that brings with it more horde clearing capabilities with its sweeping vanguard heavy attacks. And it also has a different light chain compared to the Katachan Mark III that we have now. Also, the jab special for the punch attacks for both the combat blades have received a pretty sizable buff to it, giving it greater stagger strength. This patch also brings with it player stims, which are consumable buffs that augment our combat capabilities temporarily. These stims spawn randomly in missions, in the same way ammo and medical crates spawn. They take up a new, dedicated slot for consumable items too. These stims can be used on yourself, or can be used on another player, allowing you to force them to take the buff when they aren't able to do so themselves. You can also gift them the consumable as well as long as they have a slot open. In fact, we've received the ability to give players all the items we find except for grimoires. As long as they have an open slot for it, they can take it. Now, as for what the stims do specifically, the medical stim restores 1 chunk of health or 25% of your max health, whichever is largest. It also recovers both the health and the corruption damage. The combat stim lasts for 15 seconds and provides the user with a 25% power buff, a 25% rending buff, and a 33% reduction to parry generation. Dear lord, this can be all kinds of crazy with some builds. The Celerity Stimm is the speed stim. It increases your reload speed by 15%, reduces stamina cost for pushing and blocking by 25%, and reduces the cost of sprinting by 50%. The Celerity Stimm also buffs up the charge speed of things like the Plasma Gun and Brain Burst, and even increases the rate of fire for Assail and the spread speed of Smite. Even the Psyker's QOL speed is increased too. This Stimm lasts for 15 seconds. The last Stimm is the Concentration Stimm. It increases the combat ability cooldown regeneration of a player by 300%, 4 times as fast as normal. It too lasts for 15 seconds. A highly anticipated change with this patch is the updated Veteran tree. As you can see here, it's now much more compressed with multiple tree node choices, shortening how long it takes to reach the keystones. While this is welcomed, I was kind of hoping they would allow more flexibility by having connecting nodes to other branches. The nodes also don't indicate any buffs or nerfs to the Veteran tree, but I'm sure others will point out if they are. What follows this are a bunch of weapon and blessing balances and bug fixes as well, and while there are many, I will highlight what catches my eye. Starting with a nerf, the hand cannon blessing for the revolvers has been lowered, dropping from 80% at max to now 60%. This comes alongside a nerf to the Zarona's revolver's carapace damage modifier as well, lowering it from 60% to 40%. The reason for this was to create more separation between the revolver and the bolter. Given how dominant the revolver has been in these last few patches, I'm not surprised at this change. This penetration value will now match that of the newest Agrippina 14. All shovels have received a buff, with the vet shovels getting more damage overall and a bit more of a bump against maniac armor. On the other hand, Ogryn shovels have had their relentless attacks against unarmored and infested enemies increased. The Ironhelm Thunderhammer has also received some changes. Its attack patterns have been kind of reverted back to what they were before, I think. Now the push attack is back to a sweeping heavy 2 attack, while the follow-up attack from a push, not the push attack, chains into the heavy 3 strike down. This gives you easier access to a strike down overhead heavy attack, which has also been buffed. As mentioned earlier, the special jab for the combat blades has been increased substantially from 150 to 500. This should translate into beating up and staggering enemies more effectively now. Helbores have received a nice quality of life change, I guess. You can now hold the primary fire to continuously shoot the Helbores while ADS. The strange charge rate interactions for the plasma gun has also been fixed, and now the weapon should be dealing damage more consistently with a more normalized charge time. For enemy changes, Demonhost will now only kill one player on the lower difficulties and will no longer spawn on Sedition and Uprising difficulties. This is to take into account the Lights Out modifier, which can spawn additional Demonhosts. For you Maelstrom players, Monstrous specialists have had their health increase from 25% to 40%, so now they're going to be a little more tougher to take down. Ragers have had their health reduced and should now be more boisterous and easily heard. Most surprising enemy change for me is that touching fire no longer instantly breaks all of your toughness. That being said, they've increased the damage fire does to you and ramps up the longer you stay in it. Alright, those were the highlights of the notes. There's a lot of stuff to go through and a lot more fun to be had. I leave for my flight in a few hours after this video uploads and I'm already feeling the withdrawals from not playing. What to do. Thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next one. Varlets.